There are days when the world shifts so quietly, nobody even notices except maybe one kid or someone who's seen enough loss to read trouble in a glance. I'll never forget the afternoon a 3-year-old girl changed the course of a dozen lives in the most unexpected little diner on the Kansas highway. Yeah, I know it sounds like the start of a wild story, but you have to trust meh truth has its own rhythm, and sometimes the quietest signals end up the loudest. It was late fall, the kind where the sun slants through windows thick with dust, streaking the air gold and tired. I just set my old duffel bag down on a leather bench worn soft from 100 truckers before me, still not used to relaxing after all those years in uniform. You ever see someone sit like they're still on duty, even when the fight's supposed to be over? That was me, Ethan Walker, home, but never really home, tracing the rim of a coffee cup, because routine keeps your hand steady even when your heart's a mess. Margaret, the owner, 40-ish, Asian, apron faded from years of hustling work behind the counter, focused on her chores. There was an elderly couple by the window, a little boy named Leo making circles around the tables with his plastic car, laughter in his lungs like he'd never been hurt. That's the thing about little town stillness everywhere. But the smallest thing can turn everything upside down. I noticed her because I notice everything. It's just a habit, you know? This little girl, maybe 3 or 4, curly hair, skin the color of cafe au lait, wearing a blue dress, sat motionless in the corner behind a cactus, staring not at people, but through them like she was scanning for someone who could see her the way she needed to be seen. Next to her sat a tall, neat guy in a gray suit, blonde hair, buried in a book with no title on the spine. He never touched her, never talked to her, just kept reading like she was an afterthought, or worse, a package to be delivered. Nobody drives a little girl all this way, parks in a lot with the engine running, then ignores her. Nobody except someone hiding something. Leo dropped his toy car, and it rolled to a stop at their table. The man's eyes went cold for a second, one of those looks that chills a room. The girl flinched, shrinking away. That's when I caught her hand, fingers curling in, opening, closing 3 times. Slow, deliberate. You know the signal, right? The kind you teach kids to use when they can't shout. SOS, plain as day. I asked Margaret quietly, "You see anything odd about that little girl?" She nodded, said the kid hadn't spoken or eaten, looked like she'd been crying. That's all it took for every alarm bell in my body to start ringing. I shifted seats, facing her. She looked straight at me this time, gave a signal again. There's no mistaking it when you've seen it before, overseas or in battered shelters. I couldn't just sit there, you know what I mean? I tried to play it cool, asked the man if the girl was his niece. He claimed she was his daughter, said it sharp enough to sting. I offered Lily a name I gave her in my Hiata piece of candy, and before she could even touch it, the guy slapped her hand, not hard but with enough precision to tell me he'd done it before. "She's allergic," he said, eyes daring me to argue. My skin crawled. The girl looked down, fighting not to cry. That's when I knew if I didn't do something, nobody would. I told Margaret to call the police, and she froze, afraid she'd get sued if she was wrong, terrified for the kid if she was right. But sometimes you just have to roll the dice for someone who can't. We slipped into the back room, her phone trembling as she called the sheriff. Rachel Monroe gave her every detail. I told Rachel my name, former Marine, certified in reading distress signals, and I'd stake my life on what I saw. Outside, the atmosphere in the diner shifted. The man Cole, I learned later, started scanning the room, more predator than parent. The girl, Lily, watched the window, hope flickering like a dying bulb. The place felt like the inside of a ticking clock. When the cops arrived, sirens painting the parking lot red and blue, Cole made a move for the door, dragging Lily with him. I blocked his path, heart pounding but steady, every muscle tight from 1,000 drills. "She doesn't want to go with you," I said. "Police are on their way." He tried to muscle past me, but that was never going to happen. You stand for a child, you stand like bedrock. The police, Rachel and Tommy, came in, no guns drawn, but with that authority only experience can give you. Cole tried to play it cool, threatening lawsuits, playing the victim, but Lily let go of his hand and went to Tommy, small fingers clutching his as if she'd been waiting her whole life for a grown-up to notice. Cole got cuffed, still protesting, but his words sounded empty, like someone reciting a script he didn't believe in anymore. The case didn't end at the diner. It went to court, with news crews outside, strangers arguing online about who's to blame, who's the hero. Grace, the girl's mother, showed up, haunted but determined, finally free from the shadow of a man who'd controlled her life for years. She testified to everything: the isolation, the threats, the fear. Lily's crayon drawing was shown as evidencing a little girl and a man, a red candy, fear drawn in jagged lines. Not exactly legal proof, but sometimes truth needs more than words. And just when you think you've seen every twist, Tab Byth girl from TikTok who'd filmed my confrontation with Cole showed up with her video. It was enough to make the jury sit up and see past the suit, past the polite words, to the truth that had always been in Lily's eyes. Cole got remanded without bail, and for once, the right side of justice actually won. Afterward, I found myself sitting in that same motel, staring at a letter from Grace, her gratitude raw, confessions of guilt for not running sooner, and thanks for seeing what no one else wanted to admit. Her fiancé, Paul, stopped by with a handshake and a beer, saying sometimes just being present, not looking away, is what saves lives. I told him how loss and silence shape a person, but that sometimes, just sometimes, we get to be there at the right moment. The best part? A week later, in a quiet park, Lily sat next to me, silent but present. She offered me a red candy or thank you, her way of saying the world wasn't so scary with someone watching out for her. That candy meant more than 1,000 words. Eventually, Rachel invited me to help at a new shelter for kids like Lily the Red Flame shelter. I thought I'd just visit, but when Lily slipped her hand into mine and whispered, "Just don't disappear," I knew I wasn't done serving, not in the military sense, but as someone willing to keep watch, even on the quiet days. So here's my question for you. If you were in that diner, would you have noticed her signal? Would you have acted? Or would you have looked away, hoping someone else would step up? Courage doesn't always come with sirens and shouts. Sometimes it's just the choice to see, to stay, to care. If this story strikes a chord, I'd love to hear your take. What would you have done? And do you think justice always needs to shout, or can it live in the small, quiet choices we make for each other every single day?